You know that feeling, don't you? That persistent knot may be a problem that just won't untangle no matter how you look at it. For so many people dealing with depression that hasn't responded to the usual treatments, it can feel exactly like that, like a really personal, frustrating puzzle with no clear solution. But what if there was a scientifically backed approach? One that targets a very specific, often underactive part of your brain to bring about real healing. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. It's really emerging as a beacon of hope for what's called treatment-resistant depression. And our mission here is to understand why it works, why it's effective. We'll focus on one crucial brain region.
This exploration is brought to you by Sabres Medical. They empower healthcare providers with state-of-the-art TMS technology. You can learn more over at blossomtms.com.
It's true. The whole landscape of mental health care is really shifting right now.
Yeah.
And what's particularly fascinating, I think, is that we're moving beyond that often frustrating cycle of trial and error that so many patients go through. We're actually stepping into an era where we can understand not just what might help, but precisely why a treatment works, right down to the neurobiological level. For people who felt stuck for a long time, this shift towards precise, informed interventions is truly monumental.
Okay, let's unpack that. So our journey starts deep inside the frontal lobe, right, with something called the DLPFC, which stands for the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, for someone listening who might have heard that term but isn't totally sure, what is the DLPFC? Why is it so important for how we feel and, well, function?
Yeah, the DLPFC is an absolute powerhouse. There's a really vital region located right there in the frontal lobe, kind of behind your forehead. And that dorsolateral part, it just means it's positioned sort of on the upper outer side. Think of it as maybe the brain's chief executive or its central command post. It's not dealing with basic reflexes. This area handles a whole host of what we call higher level executive functions, those abilities that let us operate as complex people.
Okay, executive functions, like what specifically?
We're talking about things like decision-making, weighing the pros and cons, problem-solving, figuring out next steps, planning for the future, whether that's just dinner tonight or, a big career goal. It's also crucial for emotional regulation.
Managing reactions, staying balanced.
Exactly. And even working memory, that ability to hold information in your mind, juggle it around, and use it to get something done. So essentially, the DLPFC helps you stay focused, think clearly, manage impulses, and engage emotionally and rationally with the world. If it's not performing optimally, well, many parts of daily life become really challenging.
Wow, okay. So if it's this amazing control hub orchestrating so much, what happens when it's, like you said, not quite firing on all cylinders? Especially for someone dealing with depression. The ripple effects sound like they could be huge.
Oh, they absolutely can be. Widespread and debilitating. What neuroimaging studies consistently show in people battling depression is that this DLPFC area often becomes significantly underactive. The term we use is hypoactive.
Hypoactive.
Right. So instead of being that efficient chief executive, it's like it's running on low power or maybe even partially offline. And this underactivity, it directly links up with many of the classic symptoms of depression. I mean, imagine trying to make a big decision when your internal planner is sluggish, or trying to feel joy when your emotional regulator is just muted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you see that pervasive low mood, obviously, but also a really profound dip in motivation, finding it hard to start or stick with things. Concentration suffers, so even simple tasks feel enormous. And crucially, there's often that general sense of emotional blunting or detachment, like the colors drained out of life.
That feeling of detachment.
Yeah, when your brain's main control hub isn't working right, it impacts everything. Your focus, your ability to enjoy things.
Yeah.
It leaves people feeling disconnected and just, overwhelmed.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. This underactive control hub sounds like a major problem. How does TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, step in? How does it target this specific area? Because it's not just generalized brain stimulation, right? It's more precise than that.
Exactly. Far from it. That's a really critical point. TMS is non-invasive, so no surgery, no need for anesthesia. It uses these highly focused magnetic pulses, not direct electricity, but magnetic fields delivered through a special coil. This coil gets placed carefully on the scalp, right over the target brain region. And the key here, what makes it so groundbreaking, is the precision. TMS specifically targets the left DLPFC.
The left side specifically. Why the left?
Good question. It's because decades of really rigorous research using things like fMRI and PT scans have consistently shown that particular region tends to be hypoactive, underactive in people with major depression. So it's about stimulating the exact neural circuits that have gone quiet, not just broadly zapping the brain.
Right. So it's not like trying to jumpstart the whole car battery. It's more like precisely recharging one specific vital component using a detailed map. Can you explain a bit more about how that targeted activation works? Like what's actually happening neuron-wise when those pulses hit the left DLPFC?
That's a great analogy, the specific component. So when those magnetic pulses pass through the skull painlessly, I should add, they create a very brief, localized electrical current in the brain tissue just underneath. This current is what stimulates the neurons in that left DLPFC. Now, why this works so well is kind of twofold. First, it helps restore what we call functional connectivity.
Functional connectivity.
Yeah, think of your brain like a huge network of cities linked by highways. In depression, some key highways, especially those connecting the DLPFC to other mood areas, get quiet or even blocked. TMS helps to sort of reopen those pathways. It gets information flowing more freely again.
Okay, clears the traffic jams.
Exactly. And second, it helps reestablish healthy neurotransmitter activity. These are the chemical messengers, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, that are often out of balance in depression. By activating the DLPFC, TMS basically encourages those neurons to release these neurotransmitters more appropriately. It helps recalibrate the brain's chemical signaling.
So it's working on both the structure and the chemistry.
Precisely. And we know this works. Clinical studies consistently show patients who respond well to TMS have increased metabolic activity, more energy use right there in the DLPFC. Plus, we see improved communication between the brain networks involved in mood regulation. So again, this isn't random. It's highly targeted therapy, guided by imaging, by research, by neuroscience. It's about waking up the brain's own ability to regulate itself.
That's fascinating. So, okay, we understand the DLPFC's role. We understand how TMS can precisely reactivate it. What does this mean in practical terms for someone listening who's struggling with major depressive disorder or knows someone who is? How does this science translate into real-world changes?
Well, the clinical significance is huge. As I mentioned, PET scans, fMRI scans, they've shown again and again that DLPFC is less active in MDD patients. And it's not just about the DLPFC itself being quiet. That underactivity creates a kind of cascade. It disrupts communication between the DLPFC and other really important brain areas.
Like which ones?
For instance, the limbic system that's deep in the brain, heavily involved in our core emotions like fear, pleasure, anger. And also the anterior cingulate cortex, which is crucial for monitoring conflicts, spotting errors, kind of guiding our behavior. So if we go back to that control hub analogy, imagine an air traffic controller, the DLPFC, suddenly getting really sluggish. The planes, our thoughts and emotions are still flying around, but without good guidance, they might just circle endlessly or crash or never get where they need to go.
That's a powerful image.
And that dysfunction leads directly to those persistent negative thought loops, that emotional numbness we talked about, and that often paralyzing lack of motivation. TMS goes right to the heart of that issue. It works to bring that air traffic controller back online, back to full capacity.
So essentially, TMS can literally wake up this command post, get it functioning again. When that happens, when the controller is back in charge, what improvements do patients actually see day to day?
The improvements can be really profound, genuinely life-changing for many. Patients often talk about a lifting of that heavy fog of depression. So yes, definitely improvements in mood, but also often a really noticeable increase in mental clarity.
Clarity, like being able to think straight again.
Exactly. Feeling able to focus, process information better. Energy levels usually pick up too. Tasks that felt completely impossible, just getting out of bed, having a conversation, become much more manageable.
And what does the treatment itself look like?
Typically, it involves daily sessions, usually Monday to Friday, for about 4 to 6 weeks. Each session is pretty short, often under 20 minutes or so. The patient is awake, alert, sitting in a comfortable chair. They might feel a tapping sensation on their scalp where the coil is, but it's generally well tolerated.
And it's getting even more precise, right? I've heard about MRI-guided systems.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Advanced systems can use MRI scans or other sophisticated mapping techniques to pinpoint the individual's exact DLPFC location. This allows for even more personalized and potentially effective stimulation.
That's incredible. And a huge point, I imagine, is side effects compared to medications.
That's a massive advantage. Because TMS targets the brain directly from the outside, it bypasses the whole gastrointestinal system and avoids those systemic side effects people often get with antidepressants. Things like weight gain, sexual dysfunction, nausea. Those are largely avoided with TMS. And crucially, there's no sedation needed, no anesthesia, no recovery time. Patients can literally drive themselves to the clinic, have their session, and drive back to work or home right after. It integrates into life much more easily than some other intensive treatments.
That really does sound like a breakthrough, especially for people who've tried multiple meds, dealt with all the side effects, and still haven't found relief. It feels like a genuinely different, scientifically grounded approach when other paths felt like dead ends. So, we've taken quite a journey today. Deep into the brain, looking at the DLPFC, understanding how its function relates to depression, and seeing how TMS offers this incredibly precise way to intervene. It's really inspiring, isn't it? Seeing how understanding the brain's mechanics translates into such targeted treatments. It offers real hope.
Absolutely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it just underscores how powerful informed treatment can be. By really acknowledging depression as a neurobiological condition, with actual structural and functional changes we can see in the brain, we can finally move away from just guessing, from trial and error. We can move towards interventions grounded in solid neuroscience, designed to fix the specific problems. That level of precision, it's fundamentally changing mental health care, making it much more personalized and ultimately much more effective.
That's a fantastic summary, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this exploration. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. And remember, this exploration into the precision of TMS was brought to you by Sabres Medical. They're dedicated to empowering healthcare providers with top-quality TMS technology, training, and resources. You can find out more and see their systems at blossomtms.com.
This all raises a really important question for us to think about going forward. As we gain this incredible precision understanding in treating specific areas like the DLPFC, what new frontiers might open up, not just for depression, but for other mental health conditions? And how might that deeper understanding fundamentally change how we view the brain's role, not just in illness, but in our overall well-being and even our potential? It's something to consider.